What's up, friends, and welcome into Week 11 Buy, Sell, and Trade right here on Fantasy Pros. It is the Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Chris Welsh. That is Andrew Erickson. No worm today. When Dad's away, the kids play. I think that's what they say. We will try to keep things under control. When we don't have our leader putting us in the right direction, we might talk a little bit about Jaylen Waddle. Yes, if you followed me and Erickson and our shenanigans over on Betting Pros this week, we got some Monday Night Football to talk about, and we have got running backs, buy, sell, and trade. That's right. We're going to be talking about the guys we got to get, the ones we got to throw out, and we've also got some buy, sell, holds. Just a couple of debates there at the end. Mr. Andrew Erickson, buddy, you and I were all in. We've been going down with the Titanic Dolphin ship, as we have said. We had that great GIF. Shout out to Darth Nug, our boy on the Fantasy Pros Discord. We were all in on Monday Night Football for Jaylen Waddle ladders. We got 55 yards on the first drive, 2 legs of the ladder. Unfortunately, the legs were cut off after that. We did not hit the next level. I think I had 3 other levels to go. I missed the rest of those. What do we do with ourselves when we go all in on Jaylen Waddle and they just poof, the offense poofed for us?
Yep. You go back to the process, right? We try not to be super results driven. We're all about the process here on Fantasy Pros, on Betting Pros, and the process was sound. They were going out of their way to target Jaylen Waddle. Tua was throwing it to Waddle when he was covered, which is why he was getting intercepted, but he was also targeting Jaylen Waddle. I kind of knew it was over when Waddle had the drop. Just a very easy catch that he just flat out dropped. And it was on the replay. It looked like he said, oh, like the lights were in my eyes. So first it's the sun in guys' eyes. Now it's the lights in people's eyes. We got to figure. Should we wear sunglasses? Get the visor, Jaylen.
Get those old school visors back. 100%.
Get the visor so that the light is no longer your eyes. You can make these catches. But look, obviously, start out great for Jaylen Waddle. Disappointing overall, kind of for the Dolphins' skill players. I get they ended up winning the game because the Rams could not find the end zone. All they did was just kick field goals every single time they seemed to get close to scoring. So for me, I guess I want to pose the question to you, Welsh. Dolphins rest of season. Are we buying? Are we trying to get? I mean, Tyreek Hill again caught the touchdown, but not a lot of yardage again. Just 4 targets. To me, the only guy in the Dolphins that I really want to hitch my wagon to is Achan, and everyone else seems kind of expendable at this point with a schedule that I don't love for the Dolphins. They're going to be playing in colder weather. They're supposed to be better at home. I get the Raiders and Patriots are some nice matchups coming up. So maybe in the short term, they're okay to hold on to. But in the fantasy football playoffs, like, are Dolphins going to be winning championships? I am not super hopeful.
It's a great point. And the fun with the gift, by the way, was something we talked about. They made the gift that we had said that Erickson and I have been very pro, like, hey, it's the best time to buy these Dolphins. They're going to explode. We've been going down with this ship, and it's really kind of coming to a head here that, like, I think Achan's kind of a no-brainer. They didn't use him enough in this game, which is just wildly crazy. Raheem Mostert kind of took a lot of those receiving yards. But yeah, where we're at right now, I cannot get over the play calling of the Dolphins. It's crazy to me. We talked about this on Out of Bounds, the show we have on our Discord podcast that we do here on the channel, where it was like, Pizza Pia was asking who was the biggest villain so far of the fantasy football season. I said McDaniel, because it's like, what happened to this offense? It's completely deteriorated too. Is it something we don't know about overall? Is it the play calling? Is it the distrust? I don't know what it is overall, but like, they don't throw the ball deep anymore. We also found out that Tyreek Hill has a bad wrist, and I think that's going to carry over. Jaylen, I do think this gave us a little bit of a idea into what this team could be the rest of the way. If there is some babying of Tyreek Hill, they're going to go to Waddle early and often. Well, maybe not often. Early, yes, but not often after because of the play calling. So to your original question, who do I want? I want Achan. I actually, if Tyreek Hill had a good game, I think I might have been in the sell category. I don't think you can sell Waddle at this point. So from a real, what can you get for them? I don't know. Do I want to hold on to them or buy them? Not really. If I could buy them super low, maybe, but I don't know. I really don't know what the trade value cost is. And it's a really tough space because I think this is the week where trade deadlines are going to be ending. So people have got about a week to figure this out. I think Tyreek Hill might be the riskiest of all of them to buy because of his cost. Waddle still is dirt cheap, and I don't know, Erickson, maybe you and I could see a glimpse of positivity in that he did get some early targets, and maybe if they can figure out how to throw the ball in mass, that can change and work favorable for him. I don't think it's going to work super favorable for Tyreek Hill. They were using Malik Washington more in this game. Jonnu Smith has seen that slight uptick. So I think Tyreek Hill, unfortunately for us, is kind of a sell. Waddle at dirt cheap is a buy, and Achane is a really only no-brainer on this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think Hill, you can still probably sell because you look at where he ends up in ECR. He's still a guy that is being ranked inside the top 10, whether that's right or wrong.
Looks
still kind of
wrong.
remains to be seen. It does look wrong,
Yeah.
but he still has the name cachet. He still did catch a touchdown. So it's not like he just went out and did absolutely nothing. I mean, I think he still scored more points than Jaylen Waddle did.
Got a touchdown. I think he has the first touchdown. So
yeah, because he got the touchdown. But again, besides week 1, he has really not had any big games with Tua. He's still an older wide receiver. We knew that he probably wasn't going to repeat how efficient he was last season. And something to keep in mind about with last year, they were force feeding him because they wanted to get him to 2,000 yards. Obviously, that's no longer in play whatsoever this year. So he's banged up. If he's playing that more of that decoy role, then yes, you're going to see, hey, Jaylen Waddle may actually end up being a benefactor, but I'm not confident enough in that to go out and say, hey, like go buy Jaylen Waddle again, just singing it all day again. Because he's on all my teams anyway. So I think he's just a hold for right now. And Hill, yeah, I think that I'd be cool trying to trade him away.
Yeah. And by the way, recapping at the beginning, if you didn't know what a ladder is, it's called a ladder bet, where you bet levels of a player going up in their yard, something we like to do from time to time. If you check us out over on Betting Pros, Erickson, myself, Pisa Pia, we do the prop show, and ladder betting logic was right. We did hit the two most important legs, which is the safety net. Everything else, you kind of lower your bets and you try to go higher. Our logic was right. What can you do? What you could do is you can go check us out over on Betting Pros for our FP listeners. FP free. If you go, you can get a 1-month premium access to Betting Pros. You can download the app, go over to bettingpros.com. And just like Erickson's got on top of his banner here, you can put in FP free and get access to all of our premium features on Betting Pros, the awesome feed, the awesome analysis, the prop analyzer, the cheat sheet for props, and more. You can turn some of your fantasy knowledge into bets, and you get a free month of doing it over on Betting Pros. So do it today, FP free. Join us in some ladders that we can do. It was like a step ladder, this one was. We didn't get the full length of it. We just, went up, changed the light bulb. We didn't get to put the star on the Christmas tree. You Christmas tree guy right now? Are you firmly Christmas tree after Thanksgiving or before?
I would if I had the space in my current living arrangement to have to have space for a Christmas tree. We have a very, very small, fake tree that we put up. It doesn't take very long to decorate, which is kind of nice. But I do miss the days of being with my family in my parents' home where they have the big Christmas tree, you get to decorate it.
Nostalgia.
So I'm into that. And hopefully once I have a home to call my own, we can have a big Christmas tree too.
All right. Well, guess what? We're going to ladder something and get you a home next week. So ladder bets for next week and maybe some fantasy championships. And sometimes that's going to come in the play of the players to buy. So it is running backs to buy on the high, to sell on the low, or sell on the high and buy on the low. However you want to do it. Let's talk about the running backs that we are going to buy for this week. We got a couple young dogs in it. And Erickson, I'm going to let you start. Which running back are you looking to buy?
I'm looking to buy Tyrone Tracy, running back for the New York Giants, rookie running back. He had a great game this past week against the Carolina Panthers. It was essentially perfect, except for the back-breaking fumble in overtime. He was very emotional on the sidelines. You could see, it tears your heart out for a young player that, again, had a great game, had over 100 rushing yards, scored a touchdown, trying to help his team win. Again, he was the engine of the Giants offense, and to come up short there. I just want to point to how great his usage has been this season, how efficient he has been this season. He played 80% of the snaps. It took one game where they didn't have Devin Singletary for him to convince the entire coaching staff and Brian Dable that, hey, Tyrone Tracy is the guy in this backfield. So I think that as a player that people scooped off of the waiver wire, I still don't think that his value has quite caught up to the actual production of what he's been able to do, consistently putting up 100 plus rushing yards, averaging over 5 yards per carry, explosiveness. This was a guy that we loved last year. Again, he's barely been playing running back. He used to play wide receiver at the college level and switched to running back his final year, and now he's balling out at running back in the NFL. So we see rookies all the time see post bumps in terms of usage, in terms of production after their bye week. I mean, we're already seeing it with Tyrone Tracy. So the fact that they can go into the bye week, kind of scheme things up a little bit even more for Tracy, who I think still has another level to his game based on how well he can be used as a receiver in the passing game. I think he's going to finish the season really, really strong. So, and you look at the schedule, I like it a lot. Again, they're on a bye week this week. So just another reason why, hey, you can buy Tracy, because it's not going to, the Tracy manager may not see his value rest of season because, hey, this week he's going to score 0 points. The rest of the schedule for the Giants, Buccaneers, Cowboys, Saints, Ravens, gross, Falcons, and Colts. So really, I only see one matchup in there where I'm hesitant to pull the trigger on Tracy with the Baltimore Ravens. But besides that, I think it's pretty smooth sledding for Tyron Tracy. So he is a buy for me as one of these running backs that, again, when I was writing up the forecast this week, there were a ton of running backs. I'm done with this guy. I'm ready to sell this guy. And they were all kind of in the range of a Tyrone Tracy. So I think that's the guy you should try to go after with some of these, running backs that are definitely trending in the wrong direction. I think Tyrone Tracy is going in the reverse.
Well, an interesting one, because one of the things I was going to say to you is like, it's kind of tough off of a big game. Maybe it tapers down just a bit because of the fumble. A little bit of Devin Singletary in there as well. That could get into people's minds. The big value is the bye week, is the him not playing. And there is an opportunity that you could take advantage of someone that's like, I got to get to the playoffs. This is the trade deadline. This is it. Maybe you can trade a little bit lower value than what it normally would cost for a back that's going to go over 100 or something like that. But the guy, and I think we might have talked about this last week, but if you remember, my sell last week was Tony Pollard off of the huge volume, and that kind of fell apart this week. Do you think you could still trade Pollard to get Tracy, or do you think that's too far gone? Because, I mean, it was only one bad game with Pollard. I think it is in people's brains, though. But do you think you could straight up trade Pollard? Not, again, running back for running back, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes that doesn't work. But do you think you can do it?
I think so. I mean, I have them ranked back to back in terms of my ECR rest of season rankings. So I think they're in that same tier of running back. And I think Pollard has been good enough. Yes, I would.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would do it. I have Tracy, again, back to back, but Tracy's on top ahead of Tony Pollard. Because in the rest season rankings, I am trying to capture, the market value of the said player. So even if I'm more down on the player, I still want to capture, hey, what is this guy worth in a trade? Because not everyone sees Tony Pollard as a depreciating asset. Well, all of our listeners do, because you talked about it last week correctly, Welsh, that, hey, it's time to sell Tony Pollard. And then every other show I listened to was like, you got to sell Tony Pollard. So you started the end of Tony Pollard.
The avalanche.
The avalanche of Tony Pollard. But yeah, I think that Tracy would be one of the buys. And again, when I look at my rest season rankings, I'm able to look at tabs and it's Tracy buy. And then all the running backs below him are sell, 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 sell.
Do you want Tracy or Brian Robinson Jr. rest of season?
So this one I will still go with Brian Robinson. I have him one spot ahead of Tyrone Tracy, just because I think Robinson is probably even cheaper to get because he's hurt and he's missed a couple games. But again, he was my buy last week. I think both guys are good buys, but he has a great schedule. Talked about his playoff schedule. It's rarely favorable. And something else to keep in mind, and something I always try to keep in the back of my head when it comes to running backs, a lot of times we see the running backs that are the front runners in the first half of the season, they fall off in the second half of the season. It's just hard to keep up that type of pace when you're getting a ton of volume. I know one of the things that maybe I didn't consider enough last year was with Travis Etienne, right? He was a player that started out the season, top 5 running back, was unstoppable, and then he fell off in the second half. And I didn't account for that enough when I was ranking him in redraft this season. We've obviously seen him play out where he's been a very big disappointment this year. So I know Pollard kind of looks like that type of player where, hey, really strong start, starting to fall off here in the second half. And I think that when we talk about some of our running backs to sell, we have some similar feelings with some running backs that may fall off in the second half as well.
I'm a firm believer in this, and I co-sign. So I'm not, adding in a whole bunch. Let me ask you one more though. Tracy or DeAndre Swift?
Tracy.
Easy. Okay. Forced to go rogue, hunted from within. This is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Developed by Treyarch and Raven, Black Ops 6 is a mind-bending narrative and unbound by the rules of engagement. This is signature Black Ops. Dynamic moment-to-moment gameplay, including a variety of play spaces with blockbuster set pieces, action-packed moments, high-stakes heists, and cloak and dagger spy activity. Best-in-class multiplayer experience will test your skills across 16 new maps at launch, including 12 core 6v6 maps and 4 strike maps that can be played 2v2 or 6v6, marking the epic return of round-based zombies. The fan favorite mode where players will take down hordes of the undead in 2 brand new maps at launch. You can look forward to even more exciting maps and groundbreaking experiences in both multiplayer and zombies. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is a spy action thriller set in the 90s by the end of the Cold War and the rise of the United States as a single superpower. Head over to callofduty.com/Black Ops 6 and get in the game. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, available now.
Rated M for mature.
That's right. I didn't know. I was careful. Didn't want to like ask you to say another guy that wasn't Tracy, but I felt this one was too good. I mean, even in like the weekly ranks, like Swift is still up there, but that Bears offense, I mean, they just fired Waldron and we really don't know what it's going to look like. And things seem to be kind of falling apart. You would assume they're going to be passing more, but Swift versus Tracy, if you were living in, it's probably something more equivalent to like wide receiver running back trade for wide receiver running back. Maybe someone would value Swift a little bit more so you can get added benefit to getting Tracy and a higher wide receiver for giving Swift and a lower wide receiver. There's a little trade idea that you can do. Of course, you can use the trade analyzer to play around with all of those. So I like it. All right, my running back to buy. Same scope. I am also taking a running back that is on buy this week. My running back to buy is Bucky Irving. So a couple of the young dudes. Bucky Irving coming off of a really good game against the 49ers. 13 carries, 73 yards, average around 5.5 per rush. And I think the bye week is actually going to become a really important thing for them to reestablish what this backfield looks like. And I truly do believe it needs to be and will be more Bucky Irving. Fun fact, Bucky has only had less than 10 touches with this team in one game all season long. In one game, he's averaging over 5 yards per carry and 7 yards per reception. So even on the lower baseline of him getting the 10 touches, you're looking at a 50 to 60 yard uptick coming off of a bye week where we could see more of an established run. You're going to get Mike Evans back. In theory, they need to control more possession of time. He can play both sides of running and receiving. Also, by the way, he had the most missed tackles in week 10. That's just something that he does such a great job of, forcing missed tackles, getting yards after contact. He had 2 more missed tackles than the next running back. And in the playbook of Andrew Erickson on FantasyPros rest of season schedule, strength of schedule, number 1. He is the number 1 for RBs in strength of schedule rest of season in favor of him. So you got a favorable matchup in general. A guy that, like I said, the underlying stats of he's forcing missed tackles. He's great between the offensive linemen, and he's going to help establish just more clock control. I think the carries need to uptick for Bucky Irving. He has had 9 carries or more in 3 of the last 4 games. Actually, if I go through it, it's actually been 5 of the last 6 games. He's had at least 9 carries. And like I said, with the touches, he has had every game but 2. He has had 2 or more receptions, and he has had 3 or more receptions in 4 straight games. So he's catching the ball. He's running. He is efficient as all can be. I think this is going to slightly uptick. He had 16 touches this past week, and he has actually gone over 12 in 3 of the last 4. He's just such a good back. This is the type of guy you get more in the back half of the season. And coming off of the bye, I think that is a major thing that is going to get established with this team. So because he is in a shared backfield and they're on bye, I think it's a prime opportunity to go get Bucky Irving for your playoff run for that great strength of schedule. Give me some Bucky Irving. What do you think about buying? It's not low, but it's just buying on a week where he is not in any eye. He's not helping anybody at the trade deadline. What do you think about just Bucky overall?
I think he's a great pick, and he's someone that I definitely strongly considered as well as a buy. Again, some of these rookie running backs, these guys are league winners at this time in the second half of the season. We see it all the time with some of these rookies. So I like that we're kind of seeing eye to eye with let's buy these rookie running backs when there's some ambiguity about, at least with Bucky, well, Rachaad White's still there, right? So you're never going to necessarily have to pay so much because Bucky Irving's not playing an 80% snap share, which is so obvious to being related to fantasy production. But what is obvious is he's the best running back on the Bucs. Like that is as clear as day. The schedule is not only great for running backs, but for the Buccaneers overall. So I think that this is a smash spot to go after Bucky Irving. Rachaad White eventually is just not going to keep scoring touchdowns at an absurd clip. And if he's not scoring them, who is? Bucky Irving. So I love this call.
And there you go. So 2 running backs that are on the bye. So you got to get a little bit tricky and make sure you got players that can play out there. But those are the guys that we're buying. Who are we selling? Well, we're going to hit this right after we tell you about our friends over at DraftKings, because the NFL season is rolling along and the contenders are separating from the pack. The one thing that has not changed this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, which is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Fade to the corner of the end zone. Running back breaks through the line and gallops 60 yards to score. Yeah, we don't care how they get them. We want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings has got you covered. This past week on Monday Night Football, how about the first touchdown score, Malik Washington, about a 35-1. You can play with first touchdowns, 2+ touchdowns, anytime touchdowns. They got you covered. And here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Score big on DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns, by downloading the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FantasyPros. That's code FantasyPros for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Running backs to sell. Let's jump in. And wouldn't you know it, we might have talked about this guy. Andrew Erickson, which running back do you want to sell?
DeAndre Swift. I want to sell DeAndre Swift. Honestly, you need to sell all the Bears.
All of them.
You just need to get rid of every single Bear, except Rome Odunze. I still like him as a rookie, but besides
in
Rome
Dynasty,
Odunze,
not in redraft. What, before you're going to go into this, which Bear could you comfortably start in the coming weeks? Give me one Bear where you're like, yeah, we got it.
Well, it's still Swift, right? Because he's the starting running back, but at the same time, that's why you can trade him for something, right? Who's going to give you anything for DJ Moore?
Yeah, nothing.
Getting it out, like no one's going to give you anything for those. So that's why I look at Swift as he still has the most value. And even if, because I would expect that we see a bump in terms of usage, in terms of production for the offense, now that they have fired Shane Waldron, we see this all the time, but it's very short term. Because usually what happens is, yes, they celebrate, hey, he's gone, the offense plays better, we're back, and then they go back to not being great again. Like that's usually what happens. And no team has a more difficult schedule the rest of the way than the Chicago Bears. This Patriots matchup, the reason I didn't talk about the Bears last week was because I thought, okay, they're going to pop off against the Patriots. This is the opportunity to sell high. Well, they blew it. So I'm not taking any more risks with these Bears players rest of season. So DeAndre Swift, to me, again, talked about this being one of the most difficult schedules the rest of the way. So Packers at home this week, Vikings at the Lions, at the 49ers, at the Vikings, the Lions, and the Seahawks. So unless you can get to the Seahawks matchup, I hate all of these matchups the rest of the way for the Chicago Bears. Any way you look at it in the strength of schedule tool, whether it's for the running backs, the quarterbacks, the receivers, it's just a mess. So I think right now, considering Swift has been really strong for the majority of the first half of the season, and even against the Patriots, again, he still put up a decent stat line, didn't score, but I think that maybe there'll be some more optimism about the Shane Waldron firing, that you can still get a decent return on a DeAndre Swift. But the thing that Shane Waldron, again, he's gone, but what him being gone, it doesn't change all the injuries on the Bears offensive line. He's not like the new offensive coordinator, the interim isn't just going to come in, wave his magic wand and be like, whoa, the offensive line is fixed. We're good to go. I don't really see that happening. So I think for me, DeAndre Swift is going to be the sell high running back, if you can even really sell high.
Yeah. And, one of the things too is like, I don't think changing out the offensive coordinator is going to like completely fix Caleb Williams' tentativeness. Like, I think you have to restructure the offense. That's one of the things why he deserved to be fired. I don't think they structured this offense and the decision makings to properly account for the tentativeness of Caleb Williams. I actually talked about this on a show. If you watch Hard Knocks too, I think that maybe we just didn't see it all, but the babying of Caleb Williams, like, get you some coffee? Like, are you okay? It's just like, no, like treat him like a rookie. Like, let's get some stuff. And like, what do you think, Caleb? It was a very weird situation in Hard Knocks when you watch just how Caleb was treated overall in that offense. And I don't know that you can go and kind of restructure everything at this point in the season to make everything better and fixed. Maybe I'm wrong. Swift is probably a good get out from. It's kind of like what we talked about with the Dolphins, right? It was like, hey, listen, are these guys going to be nothing burgers? No, but it's like, I don't think I want to go into the playoffs with these type of players that are just completely just in and out. I'd almost throw like Martin was running back show, but Marvin Harrison, just these players that just do nothing and then show up big. The problem is the Bears have not shown up at all. Swift has had some big games. I just don't know what that running game is going to look like. If you have some running back-ish depth, maybe Darnell Mooney, if you're pushing for another positional side, like Darnell Mooney for DeAndre Swift is probably fair. If you can go higher than a Darnell Mooney, I think that's going to feel a lot better. Maybe one of the Jets wide receivers or something like that, assuming you're trading out of positional stuff. But I think I'm with you on that sell train. The running back that I am selling and moving out from is J.K. Dobbins. I feel like I have done this a couple times with Mr. J.K. Dobbins. Going back to that strength of schedule playbook, I think something to pay attention to. Again, fifth worst, absolute fifth worst on the books here. I think he's got a Kansas City matchup in there that's right in the middle of the playoffs. 6 of his last 7 games, he's averaged under 4 yards per carry. We've also seen the carries tick down. What do we see this week? We saw Gus Edwards back in the fray. That's actually the scary thing, because the efficiency of J.K. Dobbins just not really there. Hasn't had these huge, he's had a couple explosive plays, but he's not a consistently explosive guy. So the reason I point out, 6 of 7 games averaging under 4 yards per carry with a few receptions, needs volume. It's not an efficient offense. He needs volume. Gus Edwards back healthy, gave him 10 carries. I'm not sure that that's going to continue to play. I think he is kind of wearing down, getting back into, as the season goes on. J.K. Dobbins has had the brunt of everything, not much balance like we thought would have been with Gus Edwards. I think he's going to be paring back. I think it's hard to imagine he's going to go over 14, 15 carries per game, gets a couple receptions. Gus Edwards might start vulturing. I just don't like what I'm seeing out of J.K. Dobbins. The schedule doesn't really speak super well to it. So I think this is a guy maybe in the same trajectory as DeAndre Swift, of a player that I would try to move off of going into the playoffs. If you're trading running back for running back, that's a tougher question. But again, positionally, could you target, the Darnell Mooneys of the world? There's a real possibility. People are dying for running back depth out there. And I think Swift and Dobbins are at the tippy top of running backs that we're trying to sell, even though I think Pollard was a poster child, but that game just knocked his value down. I'm not so sure that Swift or Dobbins have had a big swiftly knockout from under them as far as their value goes. What do you think about moving off at Dobbins? You agree or disagree?
I agree. Yeah, I've actually found myself, Dobbins is a player that I've traded away in a couple leagues the last couple of weeks, not because I knew that Gus Edwards is going to come back, but he was a player that, had value. And I thought, hey, like, I need to address other positions of need on my team. I'm going to sell J.K. Dobbins because I have Tyrone Tracy on my bench. I have Bucky Irving on my bench because I was trying to pick up those guys. And Dobbins at the time seemed, hey, who's the most expendable player? It was J.K. Dobbins based on the schedule, based on, now we know that Edwards is going to be involved. The fact that it wasn't even Edwards that vultured Dobbins last week, it was Hassan Haskins that ended up getting the vulture touchdown. So that's problematic for him rest of season. So again, he's not a player that you expect to be a nothing burger, but the efficiency, like you said, the 100-yard games haven't been there since the start of the year. And I think right now is the time to move off of Dobbins because, yes, even if his value doesn't totally hit zero, it's going to continue, I think, to kind of dip and decline until soon nobody wants J.K. Dobbins. And then you're starting him because you don't have any other options when you want to be trying to buy those ascending assets like we're looking at with the Tyrone Tracys, with the Bucky Irvings, where we think their production is going to go up, where as with Pollard, with Pollard, Dobbins, and DeAndre Swift, we feel like their production is going to go down the rest of the season.
And, if you could somehow push moving Swift for a Tracy and move a Dobbins to get a Bucky Irving, I don't think those are the worst things in the world of moving off of those. One other little slight thing I would throw out is I get a lot of questions. Sometimes it's actually just really good to know who people are trying to move out from, even if you are not, because I know sometimes like you'll hear these guys, you're like, well, I don't have them. What does it matter? It's good to know the market value because guess what? You're going to get a trade offer in your inbox for these players. And then that is going to start. So should I be making this trade? You want to know who people are moving out from. And, that can kind of give you the slick nature of maybe what they're listening to when you start to see Dobbins and Swift in trade offers that you're like, hey, I didn't know that this was going on. So even if you don't have these players, it's pretty beneficial. We've got a couple debates to go through. But first, low testosterone affects about 30% of adult men in America. Are you feeling the drag of fatigue, noticing a dip in muscle mass, or sensing a slump in libido? If so, it's time to get your testosterone levels tested. If you have low T, Kysotrex is an FDA-approved pill that's changing the game in testosterone replacement therapy. In fact, Kysotrex restored testosterone levels in nearly 9 out of 10 clinical study participants, and its unique formulation bypasses the liver to avoid liver damage. It's time to break free from injections, pellets, and gels. Choose Kysotrex and take a step toward being the hero of your life again. To see if you qualify, visit Kysotrex.com and take the low T quiz today. That's KYZATREX.com. By prescription only, Kysotrex is a controlled substance and can be a target of abuse. Kysotrex is not for use in pregnant women or men with prostate or breast cancer. Safety and efficacy in those younger than 18 is not known. Tell your doctor about all medical conditions and medications. Serious side effects include increased blood pressure, worsening prostate symptoms, increased risk of prostate cancer, blood clots in the legs or lungs, decreased sperm count, liver problems, enlarged or painful breasts, and breathing problems while you sleep. Common side effects include swelling of the ankles, feet, or body, increased red blood cell count, and increase in prostate-specific antigen, or PSA levels. PSA is a test used to detect prostate cancer. Report these symptoms to your doctor. Call your doctor to learn more about Kysotrex. For questions and more information, visit www.kysotrex.com or call 1-833-949-5040. The debates. Let's talk about some RB debates. This is always Worm's thing, so I got to steal these this week. Erickson, buy, sell, hold, Nick Chubb, Tank Bigsby, Rico Dowdle. Those are the three.
Gonna buy Nick Chubb. Got the Saints this week, so it's a good matchup for him out of the bye week. No, the playoffs have a couple of good matchups too for him. And Nick Chubb, we've talked about as a buy on this program, so I'm gonna continue to buy Nick Chubb. Tank Bigsby's probably gonna be the sell for me. The Jaguars are not going in the right direction. They don't have Trevor Lawrence potentially, and I'm not even sure if Bigsby is the RB1 in his backfield anymore. He's dealing with an ankle injury, so the one saving grace with these Jaguars was they have a couple of decent matchups in the playoffs, but now Bigsby may not be in a position to take advantage of said matchups. That being said, Rico Dowdle, another player that's dealing with a lot of injuries and a team that's also going down the toilet. They actually might be in a worse position than Jacksonville overall, Dallas. But I feel confident Dowdle's going to be the guy that's going to at least lead the backfield. They've got favorable matchups in the playoffs: Bengals, Panthers, Buccaneers, and the Philadelphia Eagles. And enough with this Ezekiel Elliott nonsense. This has to
I thought
stop.
we were done. When I saw him back out there getting significant carries, I was like, oh, it was the Grand Theft Auto meme. Here we go again. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. So right now, and Rico also is a player that you can start theoretically. You can't start Tank Bigsby here in week 11, whereas Dowdle, hey, he has volume. He can catch. I mean, if anything, he's boosted in the passing game because all Cooper Rush can do is check the ball down. So Rico will be able to be the hold for me. Sell Tank Bigsby and buy Nick Chubb.
So I agree. I think I agree with this. If Cooper Rush wasn't the quarterback, I might buy Dowdle off of that and maybe hold Chubb. The only caveat I would throw out is you've done this from time to time is you also consider their value, because I will take this more literal, like, oh, I'm buying into this player, I'm selling off of this player, I'll just hold. But sometimes you have taken it like, well, this guy's value is why I want to sell him. I'm saying all that to say, I don't think Tank Bigsby has any value right now. The Jaguars are a disaster, a mess. Etienne is out there. So the idea of selling on Bigsby is selling to nothing. So maybe you could transform this into saying Bigsby is the hold. Maybe you sell Chubb with, Jerome Ford and just overall value, and you buy Rico. I think you could maybe twist it something like that, but I'm going to go with yours. I agree with yours. If you're just talking about the rest of season, I'm out on Tank. And I know I was the buy Tank guy. Jacksonville's a disaster. Tank doesn't play third downs. Etienne looks like he's ticking back up. They had that red zone, that goal line carry that was primed for Tank, and it wasn't. I'm out on him. I hate the Cowboys situation. Chubb is getting more carry, so like I'm in agreement there. But from the value standpoint, I mean, do you agree with that at least? That like Tank is like a nothing burger right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get dropped because he's playing the Lions this week on the road, and then he's a bye week. And then the Texans tight. Like, that's what I mean. He has no value, and you can probably drop him in shallow leagues. Who's going to run to the waiver wire to pick up Tank Bigsby? Nobody. So you just have to remember to think about, hey, week 15 Jets, week 16 Raiders. Think back to Tank Bigsby, but for the foreseeable future, for the next month, he's not really worth a lot, or if anything at all.
Unfortunately not. All right, the last one. This is a little bit of a deeper one. Audric Estime, Tajay Spears, Gus Edwards. Buy, sell, hold.
Buying Audric Estime. He's taking over the backfield finally. Sean Payton finally followed what he was actually saying to the media for the past month, that he was going to give Estime more touches, even though it was so funny looking back at that game. Marvin Mims was the first Broncos player to get 2 carries in that Broncos game. Sean Payton continues to just troll everybody that follows the Denver Broncos for fantasy football purposes in any way, shape, or form. That being said, Estime looks like the lead back, at least on early downs, and I love him as a prospect. I think that he's a good running back, so I like him getting this opportunity. Spears is probably the sell for me because he's just now eating into Tony Pollard, but I don't know if Spears is now, okay, well, now he's a startable asset. Well, he also doesn't have a great schedule that Tony Pollard also has to endure, and he also has a Tony Pollard problem, which means I don't see how productive he's going to be unless Pollard gets hurt. And then with Gus Edwards, I would think I'd probably just hold him because, again, touchdown equity, he's really, really cheap right now. Again, you're probably getting him off of waivers. And if J.K. Dobbins were to get banged up, well, then he looks like he's stepping in as the main running back for the Chargers. And at least it seems to me he might be the guy they try to use a little bit more at the goal line. So that's how you benefit from Chargers touchdowns, would be with Gus Edwards. So I'm going to buy Estime, hold Gus Edwards, and sell Tajay Spears. Just kind of sell the Titans backfield.
Yeah, man, you're kind of flipping me a little bit because my original assessment was Estime is the buy, Spears is the hold, and Edwards is the sell. Maybe I can't just sell all the Chargers like I'm trying to do. One of the things with Gus Edwards and why I had a caveat with J.K. Dobbins was Gus Edwards and what he does at the goal line. Guess how many touchdowns he has this year? None. He has none. He has 0 touchdowns. He's 48 carries, but he also has no touchdowns at all. That does feel like that can change. I still feel like I'm not interested from the overall value perspective in Gus Edwards. And I feel like he is going to eat into Dobbins. Like Dobbins needs volume and he's kind of inefficient. Edwards is also inefficient. So it's just a bunch of inefficient backs. What I like about Spears is what he can do in the passing game, but he also just like, it's too bad. All of these backs are just like eating into each other and also not great offenses. I think I'm going to lean on the side though. I'm going to go with you with Estime because I do think there's kind of a like Clay thing. Like we could mold this into anything. Like he had a bunch of carries. Javonte has not worked. Maybe they'll keep going to him. I don't love the offense though. Spears, as much as I'm selling on Pollard, it was more about the value of where he was at. Pollard's not going to go away. I don't think Dobbins is going to go away, but I think it's just a bunch of, running backs rushing for 2.5 yards all game long. So I'm going to end it with Estime is the buy, Spears is the hold, and Gus Edwards is the sell. What do you guys think? Put it in the chat below. Let's see who you're buy, selling, and who you're holding. You also can join us on our live streams. We got a weekly trade live stream on YouTube where you can come and ask specific trade questions every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And for those listening on the pod, youtube.com/FantasyPros, subscribe, click the bell, get notified so you don't miss any of it. Those, my friends, are the running backs that we are buy, selling, and holding. For Andrew Erickson, I'm Chris Welsh. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros.